Cool. All right. So here's how this is going to work, I think, unless you guys tell me otherwise. I'm going to do my screen full screen, so I won't be able to see the chat. So if any of y'all have any questions, you'll have to either shout them out or someone will have to read them out to me because I won't know.
Okay.
And what I'd like to do, if it's cool with you guys, is I'm going to go through basically a bunch of topics regarding mobile processing. And I think what I'd like to do is do it all via slides. And then at the end, just actually open up Lightroom and show some of these apps and we can walk through some actual walkthrough. But I think it's more important that I give you the info. And this PDF is available. There's a downlink, a Dropbox link, excuse me, for it in the chat. So one thing I want to be really clear about, and I always say this, and a couple of you folks who've seen this before will know, I always say it's the wand, it's not the wizard. And it's not the camera, it's not the app, it's you. And it's your ability to find your vision no matter where you are. And I really want to stress that because I think too many people really are caught up in how many people you hear on chats and they're like, oh, what camera did you use? What were your settings? And that doesn't mean anything, okay? So let me go back to this. So I only shoot mobile now. I don't even have an SLR camera. And if I need one, I have to borrow it from somebody else. And I quite literally shoot and process anywhere. So I was in Cuba on the back of a cart that looked exactly like this and processing all my images, not just shooting them, but processing while I was there so that I knew if I got the shot. Like I knew how the exposure needed to be with the process I was using. So I never leave a location without knowing if I hit my target. So I'm all about doing it immediately. Okay, so landscape, macro, portrait, travel, pets, you name it, it can be done. I'm all about the lens flare and the backlight. It's kind of what I'm known for shooting, what I like to do. And all this is shot with an iPhone. The one in the middle is shot with an iPhone 4. I mean, it's really, it doesn't matter what you use. And then I often will take my work into Photoshop. And now with the new Lightroom Mobile app, you can transfer directly to Photoshop on an iPad or a mobile device also. And I gotta say, I think it's pretty amazing what kind of detail you can get with a little iPhone. I mean, it's just amazing. This was an iPhone 7. I'm pretty sure it was a 7 I used. And I do macro photography with it, all sorts of stuff. So I see there are a few chats, and let me see, feel free to chat, ask questions here. Good, okay. I do get to see the chat window, that's cool. All right, so actually, let me go backwards for a second. So here's what I'd like to talk about during the course of this conversation, and that's gonna be the equipment, capturing with the camera, because I think that's a subject a lot of folks don't talk about, and then the actual processing. So let's kind of blow through this and talk about equipment. So what I mean by equipment with mobile photography is tripods, case assist, lenses, lighting cubes, color charts, pens, and storage. And this may seem like a lot, but for doing professional level work, it's actually nothing. This is nothing. So I have a little tiny tripod. It fits in that little tiny pouch there. The grip, that grip is my saving grace. So the grip fits on the back of the camera. And so what that does is it allows me to have different angles and not drop my phone into the water or onto the ground or over a cliff. I do like that little gimbal thing. The only thing about the gimbal is the software. I want to be really clear about this. The software I shoot with, you cannot use the gimbal trigger to auto fire it. And I can explain that later if anyone has any questions, because I shoot through Lightroom. All right, lanyards, saving grace again. Do you guys remember when there was that whole solar eclipse? I rode to Madras, Oregon on the back of a motorcycle, and I shot the whole time just with a lanyard holding my camera. It was really great. Moment lenses. I love these lenses. They're glass, they're heavy, they're beautiful. If you look at that wide lens, look how warm that glass is. It's absolutely gorgeous. So I know on the newer phones, like the newer iPhone, you already have wide angle lenses, but they're not the same. So I still shoot with my moment lenses, okay? And this is the kind of stuff that I've been getting with the moment lenses. Now, the macro on the moment lens is kind of crackers. You have to be right on top of something, and I do mean right on top of it. So sometimes I do macro photography, but I use the telephoto lens. the Moment telephoto lens. So hopefully that's clear. All right, I'm going to keep going here. If my computer will let me keep going. Again, landscape. Do you see that that Los Angeles hilly golden landscape shot? That's shot with the Moment wide with no filtrate, no color filtration. That lens is just a warm, warm lens. It's really gorgeous. Lighting cubes. Sweet Jesus, they are my most favorite thing now. I use them everywhere. So I have both of these, and the Lume Air LEDs got different diffusers you can put on them. So I have a warm diffuser and a cool diffuser, or neutral, I should say. And have you guys noticed on, especially iPhones, they're really crappy in low level light. And so that shot I have of Tanya there is actually shot in daylight. I just lit it. So I extra hot light lit it. I'm going to speak proper English here, me talkie pretty. And that way I was able to have a dark photo on an iPhone that wasn't full of noise. So that's where these lighting devices really come into handy. Okay, my other favorite thing, and I know this probably sounds absolutely ridiculous, but I use a color chart. I have a little 2-inch, well, I think it's 3-inch by 1.5-inch color chart, and I stick it in the frame and use it to color balance my images, because you can color balance to any color. And later in this demo, I'm going to show you how to do that. Okay. So again, a little tiny little card, and it fits in the back of my phone in a little slot. The other thing I really, really, really like using are these, I use the Friendly Swede stylus pens, and look at all those different heads that are available. And I think this package cost, I don't know, I want to say like $17, maybe $20. Now, in full disclosure, I tend to not use this on my phone, but when I switch to the iPad and I'm doing Lightroom Mobile on my iPad, I use these more often because there's more room for using them. Pretty inexpensive, and they're fantastic. All right, now I am the only person I know who can fill up my phone in half a day's shoot. I shoot like a modi-fofo. So I started to invest in these little extra drives that you can plug into your phone, so that expand flash drive on the top. I got that when I went to Iceland, because I shoot in Lightroom Mobile, and in Lightroom Mobile, it goes up to the cloud, right? Well, there's a big delay with that. And if you are somewhere out in Natureville and there's no internet, then you're not going to be able to upload your images. So these are my safety devices for that. There is a card reader you can use. I have it. I don't use it anymore, but I do have a card reader. And then the other thing I really like is that Sans Disconnect, which is the little drive on the bottom. That's a wireless media drive, so you can export from your phone directly to that just in your hotel room. If I had to pick between the two of them, the top one, the SanDisk Expand flash drive, hands down my favorite little extra thing. It's teeny tiny. It's like the size of my pinky finger. Hopefully you'll find this helpful. And when y'all get the PDF, there's all these links to where you could get some of these devices and information on different kinds of gear that you might want to use. Okay. Any questions on the gear? Or are you guys okay on that? I hear nothing, so I think you're all good. No questions. Cool. All right. I want to throw a little some suggestions I have on when you're shooting, especially to get different looks, is shoot high, shoot low, change your perspective. I think it's really important to not, you ever notice, can you guys see me, by the way? I know you can see my screen, but can you see me? Maybe? Okay.
Yes.
Excellent, great. I just want to make sure. So one of the things I notice often with people when they're shooting, especially with the iPhone, Jesus Christ, they always have it right at eye level. And that's why their photos look like snapshots. So get high, get low, change your perspective. It'll change everything. I swear to Buddha. Change your focal point. Now this is shot with the exact same camera and lens on the phone, only I just changed the focal point. And you do that with your finger. You know, you click where the camera's focusing. That is not a lens change. That is just a focus change using the, oh, and by the way, this is using the regular iPhone camera, not even the Lightroom camera. And I'm going to explain that in a minute. Backlight, you know, front light, just give yourself some different ideas. I'm going to check the questions real quick. Everyone's saying yes. Excellent. Cool. All right. So let me go back one. Now, this is a little, you're going to have to trust me on this, But when you guys start using some of these techniques, especially when we get into processing, what I'd like you to think about when you're shooting is expose for your highlights or expose for your shadows or midtones while you're practicing. Because some of the effects you're going to want to use in Lightroom, for example, or other apps, they'll need you to maybe overexpose or underexpose, but you won't know it till later. And if you're not processing on location, you won't know that. So I kind of do this little thing where I shoot up and I shoot down, and then I shoot for the shadows and I shoot for the highlights. It's kind of, I think it's kind of an old school film bracketing thing. Cool. All right, so let's move on to processing. Okay, this is my favorite part. I freaking love doing this stuff. I mean, I absolutely love processing, so I'm hoping I can share my love with you guys. We're going to talk about capture, special effects, and some other stuff in here. Okay. Now, I had an extra slide in there, so ignore that. Sorry. Capturing. Stay with me on this, gang. I think most people really don't know this. There are a ton of different ways of capturing your data, your photo, on your iPhone or your Galaxy, your Android, whatever. And you really need to be careful and picky about what you use. So these just happen to be the 6 that were in my top 10, but I'm going to be 100% honest. I almost 90% shoot through the Lightroom app. And I'm going to talk about that in just a second. Okay, so with these applications, you can get different types of file formats, and hopefully you guys know this. So if you shoot through Lightroom, you can get a RAW file. You shoot through the 645 Pro, which is quite a nice app. And the 645 Pro app is very much like an SLR camera dialogue. So it's very familiar if you're a photographer. Camera Plus is a little rudimentary, but you still can get a RAW from it. There's ProCam, and then there's iRAW. I do not shoot native black and white ever. I shoot everything in color and convert, but let's say black and white was your thing. You could consider some of these apps. And then there's different long exposure apps you can use. I think I've mentioned I am an iPhone user, so long exposure is just flat out sec, period, paragraph, period. If you want long exposure, I think you absolutely have to use an Android or a Google Pixel camera, or that other camera that's illegal in America now, the Huawei. Sorry, I'm butchering the name. If someone knows it, put it in the chat, please. And that's a fantastic camera. I just don't know how you can get it because we don't like them here in America. Okay, I'm going to move on. Hopefully you guys don't have any questions on that. Another suggestion I have is do a test. That way you know. Most of these apps are pennies. They're free, or they're $1 or whatever. And shoot the same item with each of these camera captures and take a look and see what works for you. But do yourself a favor. Put a piece of paper in the frame somewhere and write what it is. So if you see on the iPhone, you can see a blurry eye behind it. The Lightroom, I didn't put Lightroom on there because it actually shoots in the app of Lightroom and leaves it on there. The 645 Pro, I wrote 645 behind it, and the Moment Lens one, I wrote a giant M. That way later when you're zooming in, if you're looking on your computer, you actually know what the shot was done from. And I only say that by experience because I had to do it like 15 times till I realized I couldn't remember which camera app I used to shoot it. Hopefully that makes sense. Checking the chats. Link to the handout. Thank you very much. Okay. Oops, sorry. I keep doing that. Hands down, 100%, my absolute favorite camera app on any device is the Lightroom camera. Okay, hands down. It gives you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different ways of shooting. I use professional, HDR, and depth capture. So I personally only ever use 3 of them, but you have other ones available to you. Automatic, I absolutely don't touch. And I'm going to explain a little bit about why I use each one of these. Okay, just like with the camera app, when I said put a card in there, put a piece of paper and write which camera you used on the application, because you're not going to know later when you check it. Okay, this is really important. And again, I speak from experience. Now, one of the things that I want to clarify when you look at this slide, auto is pretty basic. But if you look at Pro, I have Pro and then I have Pro Depth. And the difference between those two slides is I changed the focus to the front hand of the little figurine. And you can do that with the Pro camera. You can change the depth of field. And I wanted to make note that I had done that. So when I looked at this to evaluate it later, I could tell. The HDR lens, you can do the same thing for. And then the depth camera, you absolutely can. But look at the bottom right-hand corner. That depth camera shot is the exact same position, everything I was in when I shot the other ones. Do you see how tight it moves in? And look at the background. Look what it did to the background. This is just a straight shot. I literally changed nothing. I just changed the camera in the application. And this is how different everything looks. So the tonality changes, the focus can change, and even look at the blur in the background on the depth capture. So it's pretty interesting, all in one app. All right, automatic. So on the automatic, you can actually, I don't know if you guys know this, you can shoot through presets in Lightroom. So if you like the presets that are there, which are number 3, you'll see that little button number 3, you can actually shoot through them. So they have different colorizations, almost like Instagram kind of looking. Cool. Kathy just asked, she's not finding the depth camera on her Lightroom app. I'm going to show you that in 1 second, but you need to go into technology preview. I have a slide for that, so bear with me in just a second. Now on this automatic in Lightroom, you'll notice all 3 of the standard iPhone lenses are available, the ultra wide, the wide, and the telephoto. Okay. Now on the Pro, same thing. Again, I really like the Pro. The Pro, what I like about it, you can change your shutter speed if you need to. You can change the ISO. You can change the white balance. You can change your exposure setting. You can lock your exposure setting. And again, all 3 lenses are available. Now, what I use the Pro for is I use it when I'm shooting anything that's going to move. If it's a kid, if it's a pet, if the wind is blowing, I use Pro. Here is why. Because on the HDR, which I love, it's a great camera, it shoots 3 frames right in a row, 1, 2, 3. It basically gives you a multi-exposure. And because of that, you can get a shutter drag, which I'm sure you're not going to want. So between the HDR and the Pro, that is how I differentiate from that. And if you have any questions about that, let me know. This is a sample of what I mean by the HDR. So because it shoots 3 frames, boom, 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 in a row, and gives you way more flexibility in post-processing, by the way, because of that, it gives you so much more data. I like to use the HDR for more stagnant items. I apologize for the bird shot because that bird shot is probably not the best one to use for an HDR, but I like that shot, sorry. So just buyer beware. If you've got kids or cats that are moving, HDR is not your tool. All right, long exposure, bleh, don't bother. I'm going to just tell you the truth. I want to back up real quick. I forgot to tell you, on the HDR mode, all 3 lenses are not available. You have wide and telephoto. You do not have ultra wide. Okay, I want to be really clear about that. So see on this one, the Pro, do you see on the bottom of that screen, you can see it says all 3 lenses are available. On the HDR, it is not. You'll only get wide and telephoto. On the long exposure, I mean, you could try it. I just have never gotten this to work for me. But again, all 3 lenses are available. Depth capture, holy guacamole, I love depth capture. I'm sorry, I'm very excited about depth capture. Because what depth capture does is it saves your file with a HEIC. I don't know if there's a way people pronounce that. And it gives you a mask that you can then translate into Camera Raw, Photoshop Camera Raw, Lightroom Camera Raw, and it gives you a mask, which is pretty effing amazing. Can I say effing? I can say effing, right? Okay. And not only on the mask does it give you a mask, it also gives you, you can smooth it, make it sharper or sharpest. And then even extra juicy bit about this, which is super exciting, is, yeah, it starts a mask for you, but what if you're on your iPhone and you want to add to the mask? You just click the plus button and start painting with your finger or one of those styluses, and you can actually add to the mask. So it's awesome. Seriously, one of my favorite things. I hope you guys like this stuff. So on the camera, Lightroom camera, let me be really clear. I'm in the app called Lightroom Mobile, and I'm just talking about the camera portion of Lightroom Mobile, okay? Because there's so much to this program. You can change your file format. So that little button on the top, you can change it if you click on it to RAW or a JPEG, okay? And it's a little toggle switch. Oh, good. Melissa's digging this. Yeah, this is pretty awesome, right? There's some, who knew? Who knew? No, I'm kidding. It took me a long time to learn this. All right, so again, don't forget you can change your file format. Now, let me take a second here to tell you that there's consequences for this. They're dire. They can be dire. Here are what the consequences are. First of all, Lightroom can shoot very slowly, especially if you're shooting in RAW. And that means if you've got a scene that's really instantaneous, it's possible you'll miss the shot. So for example, if I'm out paddling on my paddleboard and I see a hawk coming by grabbing a fish, I may have to shoot with my iPhone camera, not the Lightroom camera, because it takes so long for the program to actually open on my phone. Also, this is a memory hog, 100% memory hog. So if you don't have a lot of space or you're not uploading to the cloud, this could be catastrophic. But I got to tell you, you get such great images from this. It really makes it worth it. So I just want to be really clear that there is a price to pay, but I think it's worth admission. Now, you were asking about where to find the extra cameras, like the depth map support camera or the long exposure camera. And here's where you'll find it under settings, technology previews, and then you click there and it'll go through. And as the Lightroom amazing mavens come up with new cameras and new things, you'll find them here. Okay. I'm gonna check the chat real quick. Yeah, I do have a Google Pix. I just don't use it. You can use the Lightroom camera on your Google Pix. So it's a double whammy. And I just think you're not going to need the long exposure. Okay, hopefully that helps with that. All right, now these slides, I kind of think, I'm going to check my time real quick. I don't want to spend a ton of time on here, but I found with Lightroom camera that there were a lot of buttons in there and I didn't know what the heck they meant. And the interface to find these things out wasn't that easy. So I'm putting them here so you can see what these little devices, these little numbers mean. And, you know, like highlight clipping, or you want a different grid or a self timer or an aspect ratio. So inside, you just click on the 3 dots and you can go to your overlays. Okay. Now, the memory issue. This is an issue. Let's be perfectly clear. This can be a big issue for, it's 100% a huge issue for me. So one of the things, yeah, Myra says I made a user manual. I did, because I really love it. Here's a little trick that I found incredibly useful. And what that is, the 3rd panel over where it says clear cache. I hit that clear cache all the time. And what it does is it clears your phone, but doesn't delete your images. So if you look on that 3rd panel on the right-hand side, my local stored copies was 14.74 gigs, and then the cache files was 16.95 gigs. So when I clear that cache, I clear all that space off, but the data is still there, okay? So it seems like a little bit of a weird thing, but clear cache is a very handy little thing. I cannot answer any questions about your storage because I don't know your world, what you shoot. It's not unheard of for me to shoot 1,000 photos in a day. And if I'm shooting RAW, that's a lot. Hence why I had those extra storage devices also. So anyway, starting the conversation. All right, I have an article here called Why Does Lightroom Take Up So Much Space? And there's a link to that when you get the handout. That's included. You guys can get that on Dropbox, and you can read it and you can read up on here. But you can imagine, I mean, look at, this is my phone and there's 65 gigabytes in Lightroom. Holy guacamole, right? I mean, look at that compared to every other app I had there. So it's a memory hog. But again, I find it's totally handy. I have some extra data here that I'm not going to read through that you guys can read. Again, it's like a little manual, little app set, blah, blah, blah. You get the idea. Cool? Any questions so far? Because now we're basically into the post-production section. No more capture. All right, I think you guys are good. I'm gonna keep going. I feel a little alone out here. Hi, everybody. All right, so I'm gonna be talking about the brand new Lightroom Mobile. That means now, so if you have not upgraded your Lightroom Mobile, it's free. In a few days, or I mean, not a few days, in a month or two, you need to update it because there's some fan-frickin' new stuff that's awesome, possum sauce. So my probably favorite thing right now is versions. you can now save multiple versions of any image you have, which for me is amazing because when I am outputting to Instagram, I need to change the contrast a bit, let alone the crop. When I'm doing Facebook, it's a whole nother different density, usually density. I like my Facebook pictures to have a little more contrast. I don't know, it's just how they show up. And then when I'm printing, it's a whole nother option. Or if I'm trying to come up with, I don't know, kind of a selection for my client, like, hey, do you like 1, 2, 3, or 4? And this way you can now make them. It's fantastic. All right, so let's get into editing. So I like to do color and black and white. This is color and black and white, only done differently. This is color and black and white, but I'm not going to do the ubiquitous hue saturation desaturate. I'm actually going to show you guys a different way of doing it, which gives you much more flexibility. Myra's saying, if you don't have the June release, you're sacrificing versions. Absolutely. Get it. Get the new version. It's worth it. Plus, you know what, you guys, I've got this theory about updating. Update. Just update, because you know it's going to keep going. You got to get there eventually. You might as well just update. I'm going to breathe. I know I'm talking really fast. They are recording this. I don't know if you can watch this again later and you get the handouts. So I know this screen has a lot on it, but breathe with me for just a second. Instead of doing the ubiquitous hue saturation to reduce color, if you click on the mix button, which you'll see in the first panel, it will allow you to go to each color and you can drag the saturation down with each color. So in this particular case, I left the oranges saturated and then I took the color out of every other color in that picture. And it left me only the orange. So I got this kind of cool looking effect in about 5 seconds. The other thing that's very important that I want you to look at on this panel is the luminance. So the luminance means the brightness or darkness. So what it allows me to do is, let's say I wanted the clouds to be darker on the cyan or the blue, I could, in addition to taking the saturation out, I could darken it by taking the luminance down. So it's a much, much, much better way of doing black and white, only because it gives you so much flexibility in tone and density. So hopefully you'll find this helpful. And this is really awesome. There is something in the new Lightroom, which is selected color. So I can select a color in an image. So check this out. This is on your phone, you guys. So see the pizza in the first panel, that very first panel? If you look down there, you see that pizza? I call it a pizza. You click on that, it takes you to this color mixer dialog box. And what that'll allow you to do is you put your finger on the object. So in this particular panel number 2, I put my finger on the car. You can see where the little white donut dot is. And it shows me the color it has picked. Do you see that on the top? Shows you the color it's selected, which is partly red and partly orange. You can tell that by the dialog box on the bottom. And then I happen to be on the hue. And if I slide with my finger left or right, I will change the hue. So what I happen to do is I changed, if you look on panel number 3, I slid the red orange from a +9 to a -66 hue, and it made the car red. Okay, and you can keep going. So what I did here, if you look in the right, you guys, I clicked with my finger on the sky, and when I'm on the sky, I clicked on the bottom to the luminance, and I darkened down the sky. So all this with your finger, clicking on your iPhone, targeted color. You just click on the picture and the program will tell you what color or colors you have selected. Now, if you notice also on the bottom of these panels, you've got hue, you've got saturation, or you're on luminance. You can do any of those. So this is a holy guacamole. Yeah, right? Totally effing awesome if you ask me. So yay Lightroom. Okay. So in addition, you Photoshop users, I don't know if you know this, but they have curves inside the Lightroom dialog box. So when I am on the light panel, I can click on that button, look at panel number 2, and I can click on curves, and that will allow me to adjust the contrast curve and the color. But in addition, if you look over on panel number 4 on the bottom, I can also just do the tone. If you click on the right underneath the done box Do you see that? It'll let you click it'll let you adjust the highlights, midtones, and shadows. So if you're a curve user, you can totally do what you're used to doing on your phone in Cuba in the back of a cart. Can you see the possibilities? It's amazing. All right. Are you having as much fun as I am? Because I dig this stuff. All right. The next part that I think is effing amazing, and I don't know if you realize this, but in Lightroom Mobile, they have that white balance, panel number 1, white balance, and you can click on the eyedropper and click anywhere in your image and select your white balance point. Hence, why I have the little color card I use. So what I often do when I do a setup is I'll put that little card in the first frame and I'll just keep it there and I take it out. And then that will let me do my color temperature and then I can apply it to all the rest of the images later. Okay. Now, in addition to that, there is the as shot, which is kind of these canned white balance that Adobe gives you, like as shot, auto, daylight, cloudy, shady. Sorry, I can't talk. Tungsten, fluorescent, flash, and custom. I got to tell you, I don't use it. I prefer to just do my own, but at least you guys know that this is available. Okay, I'm glad you guys are enjoying this. Cool. So that little card, the card was kind of expensive. I'm going to be honest. I think it was like $12 or $17 for a little 2-inch card, but for me, worth its weight in gold. Okay. And I'm sorry if I did not say this before, I'm still in the color panel. If you guys look on panel number 1, it shows you what areas of processing you can do in Lightroom, and I'm on the color panel just like I was in the last one. This is where Lightroom Mobile gets a little tricky because you've got the controls on the bottom, and those controls have more controls once you click on them, and it can be hard to find these things. Hence why I'm giving you the handout. All right, let's see what else we have going on here. All right, color and density to sky. So this is just a sample. Camera left, that's the frame. I'm at the Whitney Museum in New York City. And what I did is I did a little geometry perspective, which I'm going to show you in just a second. And then do you remember when I was in the color and I went to color mixer, and if I picked on the sky, I can go to luminance and darken just the sky, and that gives me density just where I need it. Or vice versa, I could do that on his red coat, wherever you need it. Okay, so this is just kind of showing a demo of where you can do selective color. Okay, so this is how it works. This is the basic version. The first 3 panels are the basic version. I'm in the color panel, panel number 1. Panel number 2, I click on the cyans and I pull down the luminance, okay? Panel number 3, I say, hey, wait a minute, don't they have that color mixer thing? Yes, they do. So instead, I click on that, and that will allow me to click on every color that's in that area. So let's say there happens to be some blue, not just cyan in that area, which, look at the box number 4, you guys. It's cyan and blue. Cool? So 2 different ways of doing the same thing. Well, virtually the same thing. Cool? Any questions, gang? No? Everyone's doing okay? All right. This is another sample of that luminance thing. I got to tell you, gang, I do a lot of black and white work, so I use this quite a bit. This is a shot at Seattle, in Seattle, and there's a little, do you see that hot link on the top? That will take you to an article about some of the stuff here. So there's the original, and most people, if you look at the upper upper top part of this slide, most people just take saturation down, and it doesn't give you any options. Look at that sky. Now you might like the lighter sky. I don't know. I kind of wanted it darker. So instead, what I did was in the color panel, I clicked on the mix, and I took down both the saturation and the luminance, and that allowed me to darken up the sky and allow the architecture to come forward, which is what I was looking to do for this. Cool. So this is a lot. This is just on black and white. Look, I have 8 slides on black and white. It's ridiculous. So there is a little danger, Will Robinson, that I want you guys to think about here. If you do the color mix to do your desaturation of color, you cannot then go to the minus saturation button. So if you look on the left, the panel number 1, if you click on that mix button and do your color adjustment there, when you come to the minus saturation in the main color window, it will take out that density shift you just did, which you don't want. So what you would need to do instead is leave saturation where it is and just slide the vibrancy down. Do you see that? So panel number two, excuse me, is what happens if you take the saturation down. Panel number 2 shows you if you take the vibrancy down. However, I do want to call attention to the fact there's a slight bit of color in there still. There's a very slight bit of red and a very slight bit of blue still in that image. So if you needed that to be completely out, you can either save this as a version and do a hue saturation on top of it, or just click the saturation down a hair. Cool? Hopefully you have no questions about that. If you do, raise your hand, send a note. Lighting. We're going to talk about a whole new subject now. We're going to talk about lighting. This is all in post-processing in Lightroom. All right. So I like to travel. I travel alone sometimes, and Central Park in the middle of the night, I ain't doing. I'm not doing. So I tend to do day for night shooting. So I shoot in the daytime and I process it and make it look like it's evening time. And this is where, do you remember earlier I was saying you need to check your exposure? So I know full well this is my plan. So in order to do that, I need to make sure my sky is dark, darker than normal perhaps. So this is why I do the multiple exposures. I also do it in situations, even like with pet photography. I know I want it dark and moody, but I'm going to be bringing the shadow detail back in. And this is all done in selective edits. And I'm going to show you how to do this in just. Karen's asking, are these adjustments non-destructive? They're absolutely all non-destructive because you're doing this on a raw file in Lightroom, and it doesn't go out till you say out. Nothing is permanent. Nothing is like, once I've done the slide, excuse me, the color, I come back 2 minutes later and put all the color back in. And I'm going to show you that later on when I do another demo. It's a great question. So how many of you guys have to shoot in high noon? Effing sucks, doesn't it? Like, how do you make anyone look decent in high noon? It's just so hard. And all this was done on my phone while she was sitting there. So I knew I could get the shot. And this is all done with selective edits. I'm going to show you that in just a minute. Selective edits. All right. So the selective edits, you will find this icon on the bottom of the Lightroom processing dialog, all the way camera left. And when you click on selective edits, it gives you the option to use a paintbrush or your finger. You know, you're just painting your masking area. Or you can use an ellipse, a circle, a fuzzy circle. And when you do the fuzzy circle, panel number 3, you will see that it gives you the option of flipping it. Okay, so you can flip it to be the opposite of what you had before. Okay, so either you're selecting her or you're selecting around here. And here is the cracker cuckoo crazy thing. You can do as many of these edits as you want. And in fact, you know what? I'm going to get out of here for 1 second. Bear with me, gang, as my phone is dinging. Let me see what the next slide is. Okay, so bear with me. Selective edits. Yeah, okay, I'm going to do it right now. I'm going to show you my phone. Oh, hopefully no one's talking private messages. Sorry, you get to see my personal life. Isn't that fun? All right. So let us look at an image here. All right, let's look at this image. I'm going to minimize this. So here's what I'm going to suggest we do, gang. I'm going to walk through this edit for you. So because I worked really hard on this, I'm going to go to the versions on the camera right side. And I'm going to say create version by clicking on the create version. And I'm going to call this number 2. And I'm going to hit create. Now I'm going to go back to my original here. All right, there's my original. Pretty sexy, right? I'm going to apply that. I have a habit. I always go to my optics and I turn remove chromatic aberration and enable lens correction. It's just a habit of mine. It's not going to do anything on this image because it's a black and white image, but that's okay. So what I can do this in any order I want. What I'm first going to do is I'm going to bring up my shadows so I can see something, and then I'm going to take my highlights way down. Shadow highlights. And now just for ease, because I want to be able to see what I'm doing, I'm going to take the saturation all the way out. I'm not worried about density right now on this image. So I don't care about doing it in the mix. I could, but I'm going to just keep it the way it is. I am now going to go back to light, and I'm going to maybe pull the exposure down a hair. All right. You guys with me so far? This is all general editing. I'm gonna zoom in with my fingers. I'm gonna slide on the bottom of my phone to selected edits. I'm gonna hit plus. It's gonna say, great, Lisa, what do you want? I'm gonna say, great, I would like a little fuzzy circle. And I'm gonna click on that, like, I'm gonna try to make it a little smaller. This can get a little hard on a phone. This on an iPad would be much easier. And what I'm gonna do is go back to the light. So take a minute here, you guys, and look. I'm in the selective edit dialog box, okay? Within the selective edit dialog box, I now have light, color, effects, detail, optics. I'm gonna hit on light again, and I'm gonna bump that exposure way up. So there's my glowing light. I'm not gonna spend the time to refine this right now because I wanna show you some other stuff. I'm gonna go back to my image. I'm gonna zoom out a little bit, click back on the picture. I'm gonna hit okay to that. I'm gonna go back to selective edits and I'm gonna hit plus again. And now on the plus, I'm gonna draw an ellipse down here, but I'm gonna click and drag out to the right so it becomes oblong. Let's use the word oblong. I'm gonna click on the light button and I'm gonna increase my saturation. So what this is gonna give me is like that glowing reflective light. There's a question. Oh, good, here's just a wow. Awesome. Again, non-destructive. I can go back, I can change this, I can move it, I can print it, I can come back later. And then I'm gonna do another, I'm gonna hit okay to that. And now I'm gonna do another one. I'm gonna go back to selective edits. I'm pushing the bottom left-hand corner. I'm gonna hit the plus sign. I'm gonna do another ellipse, but I'm gonna do a big one, kind of where the hoobie is, the bench. I'm gonna go back to light. And I'm just gonna do a little bit. The minute I start pulling the adjustment, the mask goes away so I can see what I'm doing. Okay, and then I'm gonna click on that and look at this dialog box here. This dialog box will show you I can erase from it, I can do a soft, I can flip it. This is the flip, invert, or I can delete it. I can click and drag, I can make it wider, I can do this. Now, what I love about this process, you guys, is this is something that I do and I'll print it and then I'll come back to it because, I mean, let's talk about it. You're looking at a phone. You don't know what the calibration is. How's this going to look on your printer? So you're going to want to come back and forth. So I'm going to hit OK to this, to selective edits. I'm going to go back to my versions. I'm going to make this one a version and I'm going to call it test because I don't know. I could call it print. I could call it Epson, I could call it Instagram 75, I could call it a donkey's horse. You can call it whatever you want. And then this way, look, you'll see I have two number twos. There's one before. I did some sharpening and clarity to it. This one's softer. I'm just playing around. And then there's my original. So no matter what, I can keep going. I can look at all sorts of different venues. And I did this in 2 seconds. I mean, holy guacamole, right? So I'm going to get out of here. I hope you find this useful. I have to tell you the selective edits. In fact, let me show you one more real quick. This is one I did yesterday. So mind you, I am shooting on a paddleboard, which should scare the hell out of everybody because how many times has your phone ended up in the water? And then let me show you where I ended up. So I always straighten. I'm going to talk about that in just a second, and sharpen. And then I ended up with, again, kind of a night looking shot, but the shot is not night. The shot is 5 o'clock, 7 o'clock at night. 6:44 p.m. I shot this, where it's still light, right? But I wanted it to be darker, but I ain't going out at late. Now, if you look at the timestamp on that, that says 10:39 a.m. That's because I was drinking coffee in a coffee shop doing my edits. I wasn't doing it in the middle of the night. Cool. All right, let me go back. Any questions so far, gang? You guys doing okay? It's a lot of information, I know. That's why you have the handout. Okay, I'm going to keep going. So that's selective edits in a nutshell. Now, do you remember I was dying over the capture, depth capture? The reason I'm dying over the depth capture is because it gives you a mask that you can then use. And there is a straighten tool, and I'm going to get to that in just a second. That's under geometry. So take a look at this, gang. The column number 1, when I clicked on selective edits, you suddenly get a brand new icon. It only shows up if on an HEIC file or depth capture file. And what that's telling you is there's a depth capture mask in there, and you can choose how you use it as you're editing. Okay, I'm going to keep going because I have so much to talk to you about, but I just want to kind of clarify some of the differences here. Okay, and it's really warm in here, so if I'm sweating, sorry. Okay, so when you're using selective edits, here's the thing, especially with the depth capture, I want to let you know you can add to your mask, you can erase from your mask, but not only on your depth capture. So do you remember when I drew out the light in the New York City one? I can do the same thing to these. I can feather it, I can change the size of a brush, I can erase it, I can do all sorts of, I can delete. And then column number 2, you guys will see you can change that overlay. If you don't want to see it, you can change it. I have to tell you, I like to see it because I think it's helpful for me, but some people may find it irritating. Okay, so this is a quick sample of something I've done with using that depth capture, and you can change it in 2 seconds. You can edit the background differently from the foreground so easily, and this is on your phone, you guys, in 2 seconds. All right, I'm just going to check my messages to make sure no one's trying to tell me anything here. I feel like I'm a DJ here. I got all this stuff going on. Looks like we're all good. You guys are doing good, right? Okay. So versions, I swear to Buddha, you're going to absolutely love the versions. As I discussed, you can change different, make different ones, and you're going to want to use this. And there's some hot links here to talk to you about it later. You can check it out. Okay. My next favorite thing that I don't think there is a single job I don't use this on, and that's the geometry. So the geometry is one of the panels on the bottom of your editing, mobile editing, and this is in Cuba. And look, I have to tell you, I have kind of a reportage style of shooting, which means I'm always moving. I don't want people to know I'm shooting them half the time. So nothing is ever straight. And this geometry allows you to straighten. And actually, in the geometry is not even the crop button. It's something completely different. So here it is. Under geometry, and I'll show you the panel. You can see on the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see where the geometry one, it is not the crop button. It is geometry. It's a separate button here. So they have a function called auto, and the auto function is pretty darn good. It gets you close depending on the scene you have. But then they also have what I like to call the pizza sticks, the pizza bones. It's these things. You'll see that giant gold arrow on your right-hand side. And that allows you to draw whatever horizontal and vertical lines you want. And you can square up, you can make a keystone, you can take out a keystone. And I have to tell you, I use this on jobs all the time where I need it perfectly straight. And then I'll just use content aware fill, and I'll fill in on a computer the rest of it. Okay, so the geometry is effing amazing. So for example, the really basic thing, that Whitney Museum shot, that is me standing at the Whitney Museum, and then I just click the auto button and boom, it straightens it straight up. Now, underneath the auto button, do I have that in this window? I do not. I'm going to show you in another window. There's some more options you have. I'm sorry, it's not in this window, but I'll show you soon. So again, this is a shot of Cuba, and I wanted to use this for a composite I was doing. And look how straight it makes it completely different. Now, when you're shooting, I'm doing this right there. So what I know is I full well need to keep walking down the road and keep taking more shots so that I can fill in more. So what I like about this process is you're not leaving the scene. I'm not leaving the street in Cuba and then getting to my hotel and then starting this and then going, oh crap, I need 5 more buildings, or I need just a little more. I'm doing it while I'm standing there, so I know I don't miss the shot. And a little extra credit note here, please, do you remember I said I turned that lens profile correction and the remove chromatic aberration button on? You definitely want to do this for geometry, okay? Little note. So here's a little button I want to show you. It's really panel number 2 here, that on the geometry window, you've got off, but it's got upright, it's got guided. The guided is the pizza bones, okay? Or the bones, I call it, whatever. Auto, level, vertical, or full. So you can try all of these and see if you like them. And it's pretty amazing. And it's very different. Look at this. Panel number 3, I used auto. Panel number 4, I used full. So the Sensei technology is going to do all sorts of different things here, and you need to figure out what works for you. Criminy, isn't this a lot? And we've only talked about color, lighting, geometry, and versions, I think. Oh, and selective edits. I mean, holy crap, there's so much. Let me just add more to your plate here, shall I? I think I'm doing okay on time. All right, so in the effects panel, dead center in Lightroom, there's, this is used pretty ubiquitously. You can do your texture, your detail, and your dehazing. And I use it a lot with my macro photography because I really need the detail put back in. So here's where I do it. I go to texture, clarity, sometimes dehaze. I almost always put a vignette, a camera vignette around the outside edge because I think it helps direct the eye. Lens correction is not in this window. You'll see it. It's, oh, optics. So Kathy asked, where is the lens correction? It's, if you look in this panel here, it's the, if you look in the first panel, it's the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th item on the bottom right called optics. And that's where you'll find it. Okay, so let me talk to you guys about this real quickly. When you use effects, which I'm sure you're gonna because they're awesome, if you use the dehaze, it's gonna block up your shadows, and you're gonna definitely want to go back to your lighting panel and lighten your shadows because without doubt it's going to block them up. Okay, so just be careful of that. And effects, so yeah, oh, the vignette. On the vignette, I changed the midpoint, the feather, and the roundness because that's just kind of how I roll. Anyway, I think the effects are amazing. They're often overused, so please be careful. And for any of you guys who used to do darkroom printing, black and white printing, if you put the texture slider up and take the clarity slider down, it'll give you that kind of soft focus haze you used to get when you print in a darkroom and you put a nylon under the emerger head, and it would make the whites diffuse, just the whites. That's what will happen if you take the texture up and clarity down. It's a lovely effect, kind of period piece looking. All right, presets. I'm going to jam through this because this is, Jesus Christ, you can find a ton of data on this, and I don't like using them very much. There's a bunch of presets in Lightroom Mobile already. Try them out. The black and white infrared, one of my favorites. It can be really cool. It's under the preset. You guys are going to have this handout, so you can check this out on your own. I've got a lot of information, as you can see here. They also have profiles that you can shoot through. Adobe Color, Monochrome, Landscape, blah, 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 Vintage. I don't use these. Now, these are creative profiles. They tend to look a little like Instagram. You can absolutely use this. I think it's that I've been doing this so long in Lightroom Mobile that it's just as fast for me to change the color tint and add a vignette than to do these profiles. So for me, this is a little redundant, but if you're starting out, you might find this helpful. Okay. You can also share your edits if you want to. It's under the, oh crap, where is it? I'm having a total brain fight, I'm sorry. I think it's under the save menu. Anyway, I'll look that up again for you. But you can actually share your edits to other people, and it'll quite literally show you how you edited, literally every step you took. And you can also see other people's. It's a pretty cool little thing. All right. Now we're going to go into other apps. Are you ready? I know this is so much information, you guys. And I'll talk about sharing later. So this is shot in Lightroom, and then I took it after Lightroom, I took it into Snapseed. Now, why did I take it into the app called Snapseed? Because I wanted that kind of fine paper texture, and you can't do that in Lightroom. So I would suggest consider using other apps. You can, you know, do the bulk of it in one program and then take it on your phone into another. So I love this Polaroid look. I've been, you know, I shot Polaroid for years and years and years. This is an app called Tintype by Hipsmatic. I think it's $1. I effing love it. I use it for everything. And it is a little bit of a one-trick pony, so be careful. But what I did is I did the bulk of my work in Lightroom. I did my tonality, I did my detail work, you know, shadow detail, cloud detail, and then I took it into histogram, into tintype, and made some other work on it. Me talkie pretty once again. In fact, you know what? I'm going to go backwards for just a second, and let me go back to my phone for just a minute. Bear with me. If I go over a little, I apologize, but it's so exciting. How can we not, right? I love that I'm sharing my emails with you. Sorry. All right. I have a portrait I just did the other day. Hey, can I show you a little trick here that's kind of cool? Do you know that there's a search on the very top of the button? I can type in portrait, for example, and whatever album I was in. So I was in the demo long program, which I don't want to be in, but I want to be in my maybe recent edits. Let's see. Do I want to be in recent edits? Well, heck fire. Let's just try it. Let's go to all photos. Portrait. I have to try to spell right. And it will try to find all my photos that fit a portrait. I could type in dog, and it'll find every portrait of a dog I took. How effing cool is that? Because I don't know about you, I've got what, 40,000 photos in here? No, I'm sorry, I only have 14,829 photos. Anyway, let me go back to, all right, I want to show you something. Bear with me here for 1 minute, you guys. And now I'm panicked wondering what's on my thing that I don't want anybody to see. Does that ever happen to you guys? Like those outtakes you don't want shown where your chin looks like it's hanging down? Bear with me. I think it might be worth seeing. Almost there, almost there, almost there. No one has any questions? Do you see how much I shoot, you guys? I'm a nutter. Ah, screw it. I'm going to find it here. Tintype. Okay, this is the app called Tintype that I was talking about. Again, it is definitely a one-trick pony. But what you can do is you click on your photos, and then I did this self-portrait. Not that one. Yeah, that is the self-portrait. So can you see the 1, 2, 3, 4th frame down? That's a self-portrait of me, black and white, in my bathroom. And then what I do is I go into Tintype and I can say, cool, do I like that version? Do I like colored version? What do I like? And then I can go to the frame, the plate grain. Forgive the delay here. Sometimes when I'm doing a demo, it takes a little while. So now I can go to the plate grain, add more or less. I can blur it more or less, or the opposite of what I just said. Again, it's a little bit of a one-trick pony, but look at the different looks I can get. And I do it with flower shots. And then also what I like to do is I like to go into Lightroom or the iPad, and I mix these things together. Now, take a look here for any of you who are Photoshop users or whatnot. I will also do it on a black or white piece of paper. So here's what I did is I actually took a picture of a white screen, and then I applied this Tintype to it, and then I was able to take that into Photoshop. Or there are some apps on your phone that you can actually merge other images together and use these Tintypes to make textures. See that? Look how cool that is. That's black. That's actually, digital scrapbooking. Absolutely. That's a picture of my Wacom tablet. And then I put it in Photoshop. So in fact, I did a movie job where I made it, it was a, how do I want to say this? It was a low budget film. And I didn't have enough money for stock. I actually did that, used that shot to make it look like an old film. I might have it in here somewhere and I can show it to you. All right, I'm gonna breeze through these next ones quickly because I'm about to run out of time. The flood filter, which I effing love, takes, so this is a panorama shot with the regular iPhone camera, and I just made it look like it was a lake or water. That took 30 seconds. In addition, there's an amazing flood plugin available for Photoshop, and it's $30, worth its weight in gold. I use it all the time. This is the desktop version. So I have a whole personal series I've been doing on grief. And while I can take a stock shot and make that water, why not use an app that does it in 30 seconds? Same app, just one's a mobile version and one's a desktop version. Mobile version's $1, desktop version is $30, okay? Worth its weight in gold. All right, Mextures, totally cool. Mextures is fully layered. You can do amazing, cool effects all on your phone. But get this, you guys, it's got a desktop version, so you can save out your layered file and open it in Photoshop. So what does this mean? This means you can be on a job, do a little thing on your phone, and then go to your desktop and do it again, higher res if you need to, or just open it up and edit it. It's pretty amazing. And that's called Mextures. Lighting, texture, grain, grit. You can also save out your formula. So whatever you did, you can save it out. So let's say I'm doing an editorial series on Donner Lake. All I have to do is figure out the setting for one of them, and then I can export it and apply it to everything for the whole job. Really super fast. You can also import other people's formulas. So it's pretty awesome. Mono Lake, I like to go to Mono Lake. So that's my before, and there's my after. Great for book series, magazine series. Mextures is pretty awesome. All right, lighting effects. Again, I'm not gonna have a ton of time to go through all of this because I'm about at time, but it will allow you to put lighting effects. So again, you guys, don't worry about getting all of this. I know I'm throwing a ton at you, but you're gonna have this handout, okay? So lens flare, this is a shot I did in Cuba, and I really dug it, and the sun wasn't right. I just dropped it into this $2.99 program and added that flare right on top. This same thing, I did this is kind of like wheat on the side of the freeway when I was walking my dog, and I just wanted a little lens flare. This is a different company. Added a little lens flare to that. You can also add light rays if you like to. Again, 99 cents on your phone, for Pete's sake. Come on. Come on. The dollar. Lens distortion, they have more cinematic looking distortions, and they also have things like rain. So you can add these on top and it puts it on a screen mode. These are destructive. Okay, I want to be really clear. These are destructive. All right, I use, there's my dog Jack. Add a little lens flare over him because I thought it looked cute. There you go. Now when you guys see my Instagram, you'll know all my tricks. I don't like this one. I'm going to be honest. Lens light, I think it's a little cheesy, but I know a lot of people who use it. So I would probably now just do this exact effect of this bamboo with the light in Lightroom. But hey, bunch of tutorials. Here you go. They all have hot links. And you guys, there's a handout for you guys that will have hot links on this. You can check it out. Oh my God, look at all this. What is all this? This is inspiration. So this is places for you guys to go to get inspiration on imagery and photography and whatnot. Have fun. It's so great out there, you guys. There's so much fun to do. If you have any questions, please, please, please feel free to email me at any time at lisacarney.com. Do not call me. Please do not call me. Just email me. That's me in Cuba having some fun. Thank you, Maggie Lovell, for the photo. And if you're curious, I do teach at Creative Live, so you can find some stuff there. I'm going to stop sharing. Oh my God, I've been talking forever, you guys. I'm sorry. Dan Eckhoff, hello. Sorry, seeing friends here. Anyway, hi, you guys. That was enough, right? Any questions? Any thoughts? There's a handout. Hold on, let me see if I can paste the handout in there. There's the link for the handout. Talk to me. Turn your mics back on. Let me hear you. Thank you, Erica.
I loved everything about it.
Oh, good, 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 good. I know it was a lot of information. I know.
I may have just downloaded tintypes and started making photos.
Right? And that self-portrait of me, like I put it on. It's so much fun. I will tell you, I'm going to, true confessions here, you guys. I was in New York and I was a little down. I just broken up with someone. I was down. And I was in a restaurant and I saw this really moody picture of the Brooklyn Bridge, and it was clearly done with a 4x5 camera with Type 55 Polaroid. I went out to that damn Brooklyn Bridge and I shot it on my stupid iPhone, and I used that tintypes and I made it almost exactly like that picture in the hotel or the restaurant.
That's awesome.
So, how do you get your photos linked easily to get started? Kathy, I don't understand the question. I'm so sorry. Kathy, can you tell me what you mean by how do I get my photos linked?
She's trying to unmute herself.
There she is. Hi, honey.
Hi. I've just started trying to use Lightroom Mobile, so I'm still a little fuzzy on how I link things with iCloud from my phone to my iPad to my desktop and all of that.
Awesome. So in that handout, like I think it's in the data section, there's a whole thing about like uploading to the cloud, and it's got links and it'll take you to that. If you wouldn't mind going through that handout, and then if you still have questions, email me and I'll help you figure it out.
Perfect. Thank you.
And listen, you guys, if you are not Lightroom users yet, Lightroom Mobile, it is going to be fuzzy. That program is effing huge, which is awesome. It's kind of like Photoshop. So please do not expect that you're going to be whiz bang doing all this stuff in 2 seconds. I use this program every day, and I'm still fumbling, you know? So just know that it's hard, but it's great. So it's all of it. Erica, I want to see what you made.
Okay, hold on. I just did a picture of my sister. I don't know if you'll be able to see it.
Oh, beautiful. That's beautiful.
I just liked it so much. I just sent it to her.
You don't ever get to say you're not a photographer ever again. Do you hear me?
It's
Ever
actually one of my favorite photos that I took of her, so.
That's awesome. Hi, Dan.
Hi.
Dan's a retoucher extraordinaire. We've been working together for 25 years, something like crazy like that.
It's the dinosaur ages.
Yes. Since Jesus was on a donkey. Someone told me that.
And Lisa taught me how to walk on water.
Yeah. Oh,
Good
God.
to see you.
So Dan, you going to give up your SLR now?
Oh, I'm sorry. Hold on. I didn't hear that. Could you say that again?
Yeah. Are you going to give up your SLR now?
No. No. I love shooting. I'm always so impressed when I shoot with the phone with the results I get, but I'll always bring, SLR when I'm going out shooting. But it's a funny thing that you should say that, because I went to the Joshua Tree about a month ago when I went out there with the intent to shoot, and I brought even my Hasselblad, which I hadn't shot in years, loaded up some film. I brought the DSLR and I ended up scouting, and I had a sort of like an idea of what I wanted to shoot, and I could never really find what I wanted to shoot with the camera. So I ended up shooting with the iPhone the whole time, and I got some great images with it, but I never even used the DSLR. But I did get some ideas, and I'll be headed back out there. But it's just, you get spoiled with the phone because you pull it out of your pocket and you get some great, and you're used to the focal length. And now with the 11, you've got like so many choices with the wide lens and with the telephoto and stuff. And then with what you're talking about with all the post-processing opportunity, and I'm shooting raw, with the phone, which I never knew I could do until maybe 2 years ago when I took your original iPhone class. And that's the first time I had learned that you could actually shoot raw on the phone. And I was like, oh my God, and that was.
Well, I'm going to tell you, I think there's a time and place for this. So for example, I'm here at Donner Lake. I am on my paddleboard every day shooting. With an SLR around my neck, are you kidding? I fall in every 10 minutes. But because I can wrap my phone in a plastic bag and stick it in my pouch. Oh, so let me talk about that real quick. Yeah. I used the Belt of Orion. It's just a fanny pack, but it's got a cord holder too. So I shoot on the go. My entire kit fits in this bag. My whole photo kit, all my lenses, my tripods, my moment lenses, all in this tiny little thing. So I know Dan's got this big gear, beautiful camera, but sometimes the immediacy you need, like I'm in Cuba, for example. When I had that SLR camera, first of all, it was effing heavy and my hand hurt, right? But I was trying to shoot the people, and sticking this big fat lens in their face really, for me, distanced me from them. And with the phone, I was able to hold it at chest level. it wasn't so invasive. So sometimes it is the tool to use, I think.
I get that. And funny story is I actually was doing a photo shoot in my backyard about 6 months ago with my DSLR, and I had my phone in my back pocket, and I jumped into the pool, and I forgot I had my phone in there, and it was an 11, and I was literally in the pool for 2 hours with the phone in my back pocket, and I go, "Where's my phone? Where's my phone?" And I found it in my back pocket, and believe it or not, it worked just fine.
You're so lucky.
But
I do
have
my phone's in the bottom of the swamp in Costa Rica. Oops.
So,
what do you do?
Yeah, the phones are.
Well, thanks for joining in, Dan. I always love seeing you, honey.
I love listening to you, Lisa. So, and seeing you too.
Yeah.
So what are you sharing today? What are you sharing today?
What am I sharing?
Of different than say the original class that you did. You know.
You know what? More Lightroom, like the versions in Lightroom, and I'm getting damn good at the selective edits.
I use Lightroom every single day for my Instagram posts. Every day.
Right?
I love it. I have a soup that I develop, like I'm sure you do as well, and I look at your images and I sort of deconstruct them every single time I see them, saying, "Oh, I think I know what she did here and whatnot."
Yeah.
But yeah, it's they're great. In fact, I don't even really, most of the time after I've exported from Lightroom and bringing it in Instagram, I very rarely ever use any of the Instagram filters anymore.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah. Which is saying something, I think, because you can finally arrive. And you guys, the thing about the Instagram filters, I think they're awesome and they have their uses. But if you're working professionally, which I'm not sure this group, if it's a pro group or if it's a little of both, but when Dan and I are doing work, we have to be able to reproduce. And we had this retoucher friend, Marco Blanco, who had a model who had done these shots on Instagram, and she loved them. And then she needed the exact filtration system applied to a high-res image so she could make these posters. And everyone was like, I don't know how because they didn't know how Instagram works. So if that's what you're using, then you can get yourself in Dutch. Whereas if you're already doing it in Lightroom, those photos, it translates to everything. It's a perfectly pro program.
Good point. But Lisa knows that a lot of what we do, unfortunately, is forensic photography in a way.
Yeah.
So you
That's
are
a great way of putting it.
put in a position to have to deconstruct and figure out how somebody did something. So that's just part of and in fact, it's a blessing in disguise because it's come back and to help you understand what you want in your own work sometimes.
Absolutely. That's a really good point, Dan. Really good point. Cool. Anybody have any questions?